Hello. As an EMDR therapist, one of the hardest things that you realize about the tool is how to keep it going with your client. Often therapists find that they might have had a really good session or they know it would be helpful or has seen it be helpful to their client, but they can't keep the momentum going with the client. They keep running into some problems on continuing with EMDR. I want to give you a few solutions today to this issue to see if it'll help you keep moving with your EMDR sessions. So one of the things that comes up for therapists is they start EMDR, it's going well, maybe they have a great session, they see that the client is having some desensitization progress, but then when the client comes back in, they don't seem like they want to continue with EMDR, or they start to occupy the session by getting into kind of traditional therapy conversation and talk, and you find this very difficult to get started again back in the EMDR. There's a lot of different reasons this can be going on. Sometimes it takes fleshing it out individually and talking about it, but there's some common things that happen. Sometimes it's just that the client is used to having an experience of therapy that they're familiar to them. So it's kind of a cut groove, and EMDR is a different tool. It's a very different approach to therapy. So your client may be used to being able to come in and just share and have this connection with you, be in a safe space, but they're finding that they want to do the work to get through their trauma, but it's more comfortable to return back to traditional therapy. So that's one issue that sometimes comes up. Another issue that comes up is really just that EMDR can be hard. Sometimes I like using the metaphor of physical therapists because they have a very specific skill set. They're really good at knowing what a person needs to do to continue moving forward. Even though that could cause some slight discomfort or even could be difficult for them to do, they know how to take their patient and continue to move them forward. Also, the physical therapist knows, hey, you could continue to walk around with this limp for the rest of your life, right? But I also see that there's a way that you could walk without that limp. But what it's going to take is some commitment and effort to move forward and keep trying these exercises, stretching and rehabbing to move you forward. We often have to embrace the physical therapy side in us to say, I understand that you have gotten used to carrying this trauma, but we have been able to identify there's many times in your life it comes up for you where it's not manageable, where it activates you to a point that you get dysregulated or that you have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. So you could walk with that limp for the rest of your life, or you could carry that trauma, or we can do this thing to try to help you get better. And so it takes us connecting with our PT side of us to say, it's time to continue that work and let's keep working. I know it can be difficult, but I'm gonna go through this with you. I'm gonna be here with you, and I'm gonna help you along the way. And if you struggle or if you need help in the session, I'm gonna have grounding tools and regulation skills, and we're gonna help you finish up the session in a way that you feel good so you can leave our EMDR session, go out the door, go pick up your kids, go back to school, all the things you need to do, and you're gonna be okay. So I'm gonna go through that with you, and I'm gonna guide you on that. Your client may need to hear that in order to be like, okay, I can do that next part. I can do this difficult work. You have to remember that you're always up against the client's PTSD too, right? So the client what is the primary symptom of PTSD? It is to try to avoid triggers, because when they have a trigger, it activates their system. They might have a body response. They might go to fight, flight, or freeze. So PTSD as a diagnosis, what does it do is it narrows a client's existence down in hopes of avoiding triggers. That's why when you have a client that has very severe PTSD, they can often almost get pretty holed up in their life because they're trying to avoid triggers. So when you say to the client, hey, we're gonna go into your trauma, we're going to go into your memory, we're gonna access and activate them, you elicit their PTSD, their PTSD response of like protection and block. So we have to work through that through assuring the client that we're going to go through it with them, we're going to be there with them, and we have skills and tools that are going to help them through the process. So just know that it may not be you, It may just be that you're bumping up the client's symptomology of PTSD. So that's another thing that could be happening in your sessions. The third thing that could be happening is sometimes just therapist confidence. Sometimes you get into a session and an EMDR session, and it didn't go exactly how you thought it might, or maybe you got a little bit lost in the process, or the client came back and when you were doing a reevaluation, you found out that they kind of struggled more, and all of a sudden you feel nervous. You're like, and so it feels more comfortable to go back to traditional therapy. I, as a DBT therapist, I can control the entire session with DBT, right? I can use tools. We can talk emotion regulation skills, interpersonal effectiveness. I can control the entire session. With the EMDR, it's a little bit different because once you start processing with a client, you're on a journey with them. You don't always know where it's going to go. We have some tools that we can make it more contained, but we don't always know. And so it takes some confidence on the therapist part to continue doing this work when you're like feeling a lack of confidence. That's okay. We're all continuing to learn in EMDR, and you have access to support, whether it's consultation groups or certification with a clinician, or just to call a colleague and talk about it. But every EMDR therapist is going to get lost in the process some point. So just know that, and know that you can get support for that, and somebody can help you figure out what happened to do that. It takes that confidence, though, to continue moving forward. So those are 3 primary reasons why people often get stuck, and they're finding that they're not getting back into EMDR. So what I want to do is offer you a couple ideas that you can try with your client. For one, I've already kind of said this a little bit. It's helpful for the client to know that you're going to go through the process with them. What's different about them being triggered or activated on the outside is that they are alone in that. They may not have adequate support, but when they're in session with you and you bring up a memory and it's activating, you are going to be there with them to go through it with them. You're going to join them in the regulation system and help them get back grounded. You're going to see to it that they are kind of the best you can, back feet on the ground, back connected to their body and doing okay. So I think that reassurance to the client is very helpful, just knowing that you're going to be in it with them. The other thing I do with the clients is often contract for EMDR, meaning I'll say, maybe I notice that the client kind of likes the cut groove of therapy, traditional therapy, where they come in, they share what's going on, they get validation, they're in a safe environment. So I'll bring up that I can see that they're still walking with a limp, or I know that their trauma is still affecting them in a way. So I say, I know it's difficult, but what I'm thinking what we should do is maybe we should contract to do, the next 3 sessions EMDR. So let's really buckle in and focus on these. So we know when you come in next week, we are going to start right away on EMDR. And the next 3 appointments, maybe it's 2 sessions, but we're going to just really work on doing our EMDR. And then after that, we're going to take our foot off the gas, kind of let everything breathe, and we're going to reassess how you feel, what you noticed. You can catch me up on all the other things. So I think by them knowing that there's kind of an end point, clients are more apt to say, okay, cool, let's do it. And that's the little bit of that PT. It's like, I see the limp, I see the trauma, we need to do something about it. Here's what we're going to do. Then we'll take our foot off the gas. So I think that's a way that helps them. And they also know, oh, cool, I get to come back and talk to you and share all the things I want to catch you up about, my relationship or my job or the things. I also give the clients the ability to, hey, if you want to email me in advance and tell me about how your week's been going, so I can kind of quickly scan over that, read it, and we can check in the beginning of the session. Great, let's do that. And then we will kind of jump right into our EMDR. If they know that, they are often like, cool, let's do it, because I know I need to work on this. So I think some of that contracting, I don't use that stronger language of contracting, just in my mind, I'm setting the stage for they know, so that we're engaging in increasing commitment. I think also the last thing is really just to take the pressure off yourself as a therapist. Sometimes the reason you're not getting back to therapy too can also just be that the client continues to need support in behavioral regulation, emotion regulation. So there's things that keep coming up that interfere or block. So it's okay to just give yourself permission to be like, we're not getting to that. And there's a reason we're not getting to that. If you've already checked that it's not your own avoidance because of your, you're feeling lack of confidence, and it's not the client's avoidance, it's just like sometimes they have a lot going on in life. And so the idea of doing this kind of past work is hard for them to consider. So the last thing to really take into consideration on that point is if you think about a person who's carrying a very heavy backpack, if you put one rock in that backpack, it could just be too much where they can't carry it anymore. So sometimes doing past work with clients when they're already carrying a very heavy backpack may feel like too much to them. So that gives you a few options. The options could be that you can realize that right now we just have to focus on grounding, our usual therapeutic kind of common therapy skills, emotion regulation, all the things. If you want to continue with EMDR though, what you can also consider is just doing very more contained work with very present focus. So kind of client lost the job this week. Okay, we're going to work on desensitizing that memory. Or client had an argument with spouse. We're going to work on that memory only in a very contained way. So we're not going to go into all the past work, but we're going to know that it's there and we've recognized it's there, but we've decided that we don't think the client right now can handle too much past work, so we're going to focus on more present-based work. There's other reasons clients get stuck and there's other reasons therapists get stuck, but these are some of the most common ones, and I hope this kind of helps you. If you're not sure, you have questions, be sure to, for sure, reach out or jump into a consultation group to talk about it more, because some of it could be unique to your client or some of it could be kind of the general problem that all therapists deal with. So I hope this is helpful to you.